Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Now, I wanted to get this video out earlier, but the actual calculation and doing the math of this was actually quite complicated, so I wanted to just double check all my numbers to make sure I was on the right path, ironically for a hero's path. But I'm here now to give you the math breakdown of hero's path, and I just want to talk about a couple of other things that they've said today about events going forward. So before we get into the hero's path, I just want to take a look at what they've mentioned in the Raid Digest. So the Raid Digest comes out every other Friday normally. Sometimes there's little nuggets of information in here that they haven't really kind of leaked before, or maybe they're hinting at different things. Generally though, they tend to repeat things that have already been announced. However, on this particular one, so we've got some like things down here which I don't really I'm not going to cover in this video about community activities, some player and play features, some clarification on Hero's Path. We'll check that in a minute. But the thing I really wanted to point out and kind of highlight here is this like kind of almost passing comment on grouping players for events. What currently happens in terms of tournaments at the moment is you kind of get placed in your tournament groups. It's not an exact science. We don't really have the algorithm here. But in the sense that they don't want new players fighting against someone like myself, who's been playing the game for 2.5 years, who has a lot of budget. They try and pair people up to their player power, their level, which is often why we'll get tournaments where the top reward might be different for a newish player below level 50 than older players who've been playing for a lot longer who are level 100 accounts. They've kind of gone on a similar path here, and they've mentioned about events, and I'm going to read this out and we're going to try and dissect what they're actually saying and see if I can translate it into a more logical thing for players to understand. As you may notice, in the case of tournaments, players get grouped together with others roughly the same stage of account progression to make the competition fairer. Makes sense. Now, one thing to note here, obviously, tournaments are competitive, events are milestones. There's no competition with other players. But that's not been the case for events so far, where the point milestones are equal for everyone. However, taking into account different needs and capabilities of different players, different is a very broad definition here, especially new ones, we're going to introduce a more flexible approach to events. Some of them might feature more accessible milestones for beginners along with rewards, more appropriate for players' demands at that game stage. On the other hand, more seasoned raid veterans might face more challenging milestones with more valuable rewards. Not all events will have this milestone variation, though, and we will need some time to collect data and feedback before settling down on events group settings. Okay, so what does this actually mean? What they're going to do by the sounds of it is if I'm a new player coming into raid and there's a fusion on tomorrow, that fusion event might have a summon rush that needs 3,500 points. That fusion might have a dungeon divers that needs 3,000 points. Well, doing dungeon divers at, say, stage 10 is actually quite difficult. It's a lot of effort. And it automatically, to some extent, qualifies players out from doing that. So what it sounds like they're going to do, for those newer players, maybe accounts below level 50, they might move the milestones from, say, 2 to 3,000 dungeon divers points for the fragments to 1 to 2,000. I think they're just going to move it down. Maybe the rewards will get weaker as well, which I think is fair. I mean, if you're not hitting the same amount of points and effort as other players, you shouldn't be rewarded equally, because that just creates a system where new players are effectively gaining a massive advantage over existing players. However, what it does mean is if those fragment events are coming in, it's more accessible. And obviously we've just had the announcement, which I'm going to cover in tomorrow's video in more detail. I know Fiction has done a bit of an announcement. Hellhades is away. I was in a hospital appointment, so I couldn't do the video earlier. I'm going to give a full breakdown of the fusion in more detail, but we know that one is going to be a fragment epic champion collector into an epic traditional fusion like the Brogni. So for those types of events, new players on this change might get a more accessible objective. That's great. That's really important. We want new players to come in and feel like they can participate in everything. Not necessarily beat the top players, but feel like they can join in with these things and not go, oh, well, I haven't got the resources to do this competition. Now, the thing that concerns me is the second part where they then said more seasoned raid veterans might face more challenging milestones with more valuable rewards. Firstly, what is a more valuable reward? We know that the valuation that raid places on some objects is nowhere near the valuation of other players in this game. Potions, silver, sacred shards, we value these items a lot lower compared to, say, ancients, voids, legendary books potentially. it depends what they mean by more valuable rewards. If they're going to move all the milestones up 1,000 and then give us a chaos ore, that's going to upset a lot of players. The other thing they're saying is more raid veterans might face more challenging milestones. Hopefully it just means have another tier that you can push higher up because you have more resources to burn, not that 3,000 dungeon divers that was already a bit of a stretch and feels like a bit of an ordeal at the moment. It feels like dungeon divers specifically has become more of a chore. We're going to move that up 500 points. So now you have to do more dungeons and more energy. We don't want that. But I just wanted to highlight this because I think this kind of was a bit of a random thing to slip in a raid digest and not make a big thing about. It actually affects a lot of players in a lot of different ways. Hopefully it's a positive thing. New players get a better experience early on and more accessible. And if it gives raid veterans access to better rewards in these events for a reasonable amount of effort, let's not make it another 5,000 points to get a legendary book, please. We'll have to see. But that I just wanted to point out. The other thing here they've talked about is a clarification on coins. While we're on the topic of events, let's briefly touch upon the way Heroes Path events relate to events proper. Long story short, they don't. Well, we know that. As Hero Path's activity grants you a distinct type of resource, coins, clever plarium, wrap something up in a different currency, which are not the same as event points, tournament points, or clan versus clan points. Therefore, reaching milestones in the Hero Path doesn't count towards the progression of missions that stipulate an accumulating of a certain number of points. Okay, so I think all this just basically means is, guys, you know, if you're doing the Heroes Path, that doesn't mean when you're at the milestone, do 30,000 event points, that's going to count. Well, that kind of is a bit of an obvious statement. Coins is a different currency. That's how they've kind of made this thing feel new, by basically wrapping the same type of events you're doing, combining two of them and giving you a third currency that you have to then spend to get your resources. Right, let's take a breakdown of the Heroes Path and let's look at that now in more detail. Heroes Path, the Path of Light, the first one. I despised the Path of Light. I was pretty aggressively negative on it. Probably a little bit too much for what I normally am. Normally I try to be a little bit positive, but I was so disappointed in the event. I felt like they could do much more. So it's back. We've got a new Heroes Path here, and it's not the Path of Light. It's not thematically. It's just a standard path. They've made some changes. So clearly they've looked at the analytics and some changes have come back. Let's see what they've done. So we've got quite a complicated path now. I looked at this a few times and it confused me a few times and I missed things. So the first big change, you don't need a key to unlock a path. That's the first big change. They haven't given you a free key. You have to just start earning coins and then start your progression down a path. I've basically considered these as 5 distinct paths, although there are ways down 3 paths. So it's still a 3-path system, but we've got kind of like 5 paths here. So I'm basically saying when you hear me reference in this video path 1, I'm literally going path 1, path 2, down the middle, path 3 is the middle one, path 4 is the one to the right, and then the final path here is path 5. But obviously you could take a little bit down path 4, then jump and get that rare book, continue down path 4 to get your key, or you can forget the key and go straight down path 5. There's lots of different ways to do it, but in terms of the actual point costs, the rare book here is in path 5, the bruiser in path 4. This is path 4 here in the kind of like that 4 pane. That's kind of like what it might confuse a few people. If it does, I apologize. It probably confused me at the start. As I hinted at yesterday's video, the way they've structured the hero path means that they can change the objectives each time. Last time we had artifact enhancement and dungeon divers. This time we've got dungeon divers and upgrading, so champion training. I've got a full math breakdown. I spent all day doing it to give you an idea of the best way to approach this, whether it's worth it. What I've also done here, I've called a sacred path. So the big reward here is that sacred shard, especially if you're going for Necmothar at the moment. We've always got a legendary book and a 5-star chicken. These are optional. Players kind of probably are looking at this going, that'd be nice to get that sacred shard. So I've called a sacred path in my mathematics here, and that will basically be the leanest, most efficient way in terms of Litecoin spending to get the 2 keys you need here to unlock this path. So we're going to take probably the left-hand path here, get the chicken, skip all of this left path here. We don't need these resources so we can get to the key. And on the right here, we're going to take the brew, the silver, the rare book, the gems down here, and then obviously the total middle path. Keep in mind the sacred shard here is 50% pretty much of the required Litecoins to get to that point. You know, up to the void, it's basically about 25, then the rest is about 25. So have they improved this path enough for me to change my opinion in terms of, do I like this event? Well, it's more creative. I like that. It's better structured. I think the rewards here are a bit more flexible. I can go down the left completely and get my legendary book pretty efficiently. It's cheaper than the last one, I think, a little bit. Or I can go down the right and get my chicken here. The epic book is over here. I would have preferred the chickens to be on the right, so you can choose between books completely or chickens completely. I think it's almost like that's a typo. That epic book feels like it should be on the left-hand side. When I saw the 2 keys, my initial reaction was, oh God, this is awful. But actually, when I've done the math, it's not so bad, because at least the middle path is all shards. So you're pretty much choosing, with the exception of this epic book, books, chickens, because the energy is on the right-hand side, or shards. So you have a choice. You can do it all if you want to, but that's quite a lot of effort and energy. We've also got a little under 4 days here, so there's plenty of time. We can do it throughout the weekend. So that's what they've done with this hero path. It's not... The rewards are, again, very similar. We're getting the rarity charms, core hammers, the energy, the potions. It's a real shame that these are 5-star Chaos Ore, because I really think 5-star Chaos Ore is just not good enough. This should be 6 and 6, in my opinion. Even for mid-game players, they're not going to really have that many pieces of equipment that they're going to want to use a 5-star Chaos Ore on it, in my opinion, because they tend to sell those most of the time. So that's a shame there, but it is what it is. We've got some silver. The chickens are nice. It feels like there's more food here. And then obviously brews and stuff. So I feel like the rewards are okay. Obviously, the addition of the Sacred Shard feels like a nice boost at the moment when everyone needs Necmothar. So let's take a look at the math. This is going to be a very math-heavy section now. If you're not into the math, just skip to the end. I will put a chapter at the end kind of summarizing what you need to do. But I need to obviously explain to players how I've got to those numbers if you're watching, so that it makes sense. But if you just want to know the summary, skip to the milestone at the end, and I will tell you what is the best way to do this event. First thing to point out, they didn't change the Litecoin acquisition for the Dungeon Divers component. You get the same amount of Litecoins as you did as the last hero path, so therefore we can kind of reuse the math. In this video, I'm not going to be comparing it against Champion Training or Dungeon Divers events, even though you might see math in areas where I've done that. My main focus here is how much energy and resources would you need to commit to get to the rewards that you want. That's my main focus here, and then you can make a decision whether you think that is worth it or not. So we've got obviously the odds of different stages here in terms of, like, you know, what's the chances of you getting a 5-star rare, 6-star epic for the different dungeon stages. And then we can convert that into Litecoins, and this kind of gives us the average Litecoin for each stage. So pretty much stage 16 and 20 remains the most efficient way to get Litecoins. Obviously, if you want gear, it's better to run 24, 25, and 25 especially if you want 6-star legendary. But if all you're interested in is the event points, you would want to run it here. Now, I'm going to tell you pretty much straightforward, when you look at the numbers, Dungeon Divers is not the way to go here. It's not the main focus. As I mentioned earlier, I have done 6 paths effectively. We've got the main 5 paths here, and I've also created a 6th one, Sacred Path, which is basically the leanest, lowest Litecoin requirement to get to your Sacred Shard. So we can take a real good analysis here. So for path 1, for example, if that's basically going all the way down the left-hand side to get your legendary book, you need around about 16,450 Litecoins. So we can divide that with the average numbers here in terms of how much you would get, which is 27.7. And that'll give us a run count of 595 stage 16 dungeons or 524 at stage 20. This is what this first block is giving us effectively, is how many runs in a dungeon do I need to do to get the required number of Litecoins in order to complete that path. The first big thing to note is the total number of Litecoins you need to complete the entire event is much higher than last time. We're at 83,000 this time. Obviously, there is more, I feel more rewards there in terms of the Sacred Shard, and there's more different ways you can take the path. So I think then the expectancy is you wouldn't want to complete every objective, but if you did, you're going to need to do a lot more. That is around about 3,000 dungeon runs, 2,660 at stage 20. It's a bit of a jump there, so you can see like the benefit. So how does that translate into energy requirements? Well, this is the energy numbers down here. If you want to do every single path, you're looking at 42,000 energy. If you want to do just the Sacred Path, it's about 25,000 energy. This is why I'm saying the Dungeon Divers aspect is not something to focus on here. I think the Champion Training is going to be more accessible. If you want to just do the Sacred Path down the middle, well, obviously you're going to still need to get the keys. That's why we have the Sacred Path here. That's an additional, well, let's do the quick math here, 7,500 coins. If you just want to get the middle one, it's 18,000, and then obviously the legendary book's about 8,000 energy. So that's a lot of energy. So if all you want to do, that's assuming all you do is Dungeon Divers. I wouldn't consider that. I would focus exclusively and consider this a champion training event. Now, this bit is going to be a lot of weird math in lots of different places. I'm going to summarize at the end, but I also want to show you how we've got here. So there's two ways that I can consider you would want to approach this from a champion training point of view. You might want to go and just focus on making rank 6s, or you might want to focus on just making food. It depends on whether you have champions in the backlog you want to take to rank 6, or whether your main focus is just generate food for the upcoming fusion, or whatever you want to do. Maybe you just want to build some food. So I've got two paths here in terms of that. I've got a rank 6 target, which is basically taking rank 2 and up. So we're ignoring rank 1 for the time being, taking rank 2 all the way to a one singular rank 6 and upgrading that rank 6. What we're also going to factor in is that we're going to partially level rank 4s and rank 5s, but we're not going to do rank 3s. This is my approach where I want to kind of keep energy a bit lower, but there's probably a slightly more efficient way. If you did want to do rank 3s, you'd probably save yourself a little bit of energy. I just prefer less hassle, just to not have to do the rank 3s as well, because you have a lot more rank 3s and rank 4s and 5s to do. So we're going to partially level rank 4 to 14, and we're going to partially level rank 5 to 25. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm not considering brew usage. This is if you just want to run campaign, so obviously you can offset some of the energy requirements here with some brews. So I've pulled in all of the Litecoin gains from the event, so we know exactly how many coins we get from leveling up and from ranking up, and I've put them in the order here for a rank 6 objective. So we obviously will want to upgrade our new rank 6 to level 60. That requires 2 million XP. That's going to be important when we look at the number of campaign runs we need to do, but that will give us 1,080 Litecoins. Upgrading our rank 5 to a rank 6 is another 675 Litecoins. And obviously we're going to need to level that rank 5 to level 50 in order to upgrade it. That's another 962,000 XP, give or take, and that will give us another 650 Litecoins from just leveling from 1 to 50. Now, we also need 5 rank 5s, as you know, to take a rank 5 champion to a rank 6. So we're going to need to create those. So we're going to need to upgrade them to rank 5. That will give us 1,125 Litecoins. We also want to partially level those rank 5s to level 25. That's about 125 levels, and that will require 623,000 XP, but we will get a 1625. Partially leveling food, even though it might seem like a waste, is actually a really good way of being efficient here. It's going to give us a lot of points, as you're going to see as we go down. Now, the next stage, we need 25 rank 4s. We always need one extra rank 4 because we're going to need to level that rank 4 to rank 5 to create the rank 5. We don't with the level 6 because we've already factored that in up here. But for a rank 4, even though you only need 3 level 3s to make a rank 4, we need an extra rank 4 to be able to go to the rank 5 here. So again, we need 25 rank 4s. That's going to give us 875 Litecoins. We're going to fully level 5 of those rank 4s. So that's 200 levels. That's a 2.2 million XP. We're going to get 1,400 Litecoins here. And you can see it goes on. There is 20 partial levels of rank 4s. That's 758,000 experience. That'll give us 1,960. So you can see partially leveling those to level 14 actually gives us more Litecoins than fully leveling the rank 4 of the rank 4s here, or 5 of the rank 4s. We also need 100 rank 3s to be able to make the rank 4s to be able to make the rank 5s. You can see why this has taken me all day to work this out. It's a bit of a Inception brain teaser. That's going to give us 3,500 Litecoins. So actually the Litecoin gain is very bottom loaded. The lower food will give you more because it's more volume. Fully leveling those, we're going to need to fully level 25 rank 3s. That's 5 million experience, and that will give us 3,000 Litecoins. We're not partially leveling rank 3s. You could do so if you wanted to, but we're going to not do that. That's 0. We're going to need 300 rank 2s. That's going to give us 3,000 Litecoins. 100 of those need to be fully leveled. That's 8.1 million XP. This is the big bulk of the XP requirements. That is 6,000 Litecoins. What does that actually mean? Well, we need just under 20 million experience that we're going to have to get from either brews or campaign. I've only calculated campaign, but it will give us 24,890 points for every fully leveled rank 6 champion that we've taken with food from rank 2 all the way through to rank 6. and partially leveling rank 4s and rank 5s. That's not a bad amount of Litecoins for the amount of effort we have here when you look at the energy translation. Now, if your goal was just to do rank 2 to rank 5, so you're creating food, what we're going to do is cut off that top layer and basically bring it all down in terms of quantity. So in order for us to make a single rank 5, and we're going to partially level that single rank 5 to 25, so we gain those coins, this is the same kind of process, but a lot less numbers. We'll need about 3.35 million experience in total. That will net us 4,872 per rank 5 we take to level 25, and the food from rank 2 all the way through to rank 5 to make that, partially leveling rank 4s and rank 5s. Exactly the same process, but we're just making food instead. So what I'm doing here is I'm essentially giving you 2 ways, or 2 calculated ways to know, depending on what you want to achieve. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these numbers and we're going to work out how many you actually need to complete each path, and we're going to look at the energy distribution and campaign. And the other thing obviously we need to factor in is you will acquire artifacts from doing campaign. So there is a Litecoin component that you're going to gain from the uncommon and common artifacts you get. It's not substantial, but it actually does add in, and it does reduce the requirements here for your training. So what I've got on the screen here is basically the Litecoin acquisition. You can see I pulled out the level upgrades, the rank upgrades. This is what I calculated the Litecoin gain from over in the other screen. And we've also got then kind of like the total levels, the partial level targets that I've set here. What I've also done is tried to calculate the average expected Litecoin gain from campaign. Now it's a little bit tricky, obviously, because there's only a 72% chance that you're going to get an artifact on Brutal. I think that rises to 87% on Nightmare. So there's always a chance you could run the energy and not get the artifact. I've factored those odds in here. How have I done that? Firstly, I've pulled out how many Litecoins you get for the rank 3, 4, 5 commons and the rank 3, 4, 5 uncommons. And then I've got the Nightmare variant below it, as that can give you rank 6. So what I've done is I've taken the odds you're going to get the artifact, multiplied it with the odds of that specific chance for the rank 3. So for example, it's a 72% chance that you'll get an artifact, and it's then a 42.5% chance that it will be rank 3 common on 12.3. So that actually gives us a weighted opportunity of 31% that that's what the outcome of that run will be. We then take that number and we multiply it with the Litecoin that you would gain, and that gives us an average Litecoins for that odds. We can then work this out for all of the other odds and then basically add up those odds. So that'll basically tell us on average per run you'll get 10.56. Now that doesn't mean you're getting 10.56 every single run. It means if you did 10 runs, it could be that 7 of them gave you an artifact, and then if you multiplied that with 10.56 you probably end up with the same number of Litecoins. In terms of where I got these percentages and odds, these are available to you in the stages tool. You can find this on the Hellhades website. I'll put a link in the description below to the stages so that you can access them. You can just double check my math if you want to, but these are basically the weighted odds for all those different things. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means that on a 12.3 brutal run, on average per run, you're going to gain an extra 10.56 Litecoins. That's pretty good. On Nightmare, it changes slightly. The odds go up. It's an 87% chance that you're going to get a artifact, but there's also more distribution in terms of you could get rank 6, common or uncommons. So we have to factor that in. It gives you an average of 15.18 Litecoins on Nightmare 12.6. But the caveat being here, Nightmare 12.6 is more energy, it's double the energy, but you're not actually getting double the Litecoins. So I'm pretty confident when we show the math that it's going to be better to run 12.3 here than run 12.6 Nightmare, because you're going to get more divers Litecoins, which is going to overall reduce the amount of training and upgrading you're going to need to do. In terms of how much XP we get per run, on 12.3 we get 17,304 unboosted, which means if you've got the XP boost on, which most players should have, if they're an experienced long-term player, you do CVC, you do build up quite a budget and quite a threshold of XP boost, that'll be 34,608. And then if you have the raid card as well, it's 41,530. Now the raid card is normally quite useful if you're doing a lot of training for Nightmare, because it allows your rank 1s to be done in one run. I don't necessarily think you need the raid card here, and I've calculated all the numbers off just having the boost, not the raid card. So if you have the raid card, you could probably save yourself some energy. We then take that number and we divide it by 4. Even though your lead champion might be 60, you don't gain any XP, and that XP is still lost. And then we take that individual per champion amount, and then we multiply it by 3, the 3 food that we're leveling. So that should give us how much experience we're gaining per run. Obviously, I'm looking at total experience required for the actual rank 2 to rank 6, not per champion, so we need that per run number. So we're looking at a 25,956 experience for a 12-3 brutal run, and then for a 12-6 nightmare, we're looking at 58,608. Obviously, you get a lot more XP in 12-6, but you have to spend a lot more energy. We take these numbers here. These are important. The light coins for the dungeon divers and the XP. And now we're going to work out how many rank 2 to rank 6 and how many rank 2 to rank 5s we're going to need to make in order to hit our goals for the different paths. The total number of XP required to take one rank 6 from 2 to 6, fully upgrade it, partially level, is 19,751,645. So we can take that number and we can divide it by the XP we get per run. That gives us the number of runs we need to do. So that's 761 for Brutal 12-3 or 337 for Nightmare 12-6. Obviously, you save a lot of time doing Nightmare, but it might not be as efficient for this event. That will equate to 6,088 energy for Brutal or 5,392 for Nightmare. We know Nightmare is more energy efficient for XP. We're seeing that here, but the number of runs is time. So Nightmare, you normally save time and a little bit of energy. How does that translate into bonus divers coins? So this is additional light coins you're going to gain throughout the leveling process. You're going to gain an extra 8,032 on average. So that could be higher or lower. It's not an exact number. And on Brutal, and then you're going to get 5,116 on Nightmare 12-3. This is why I was suggesting that Brutal is the way to go here, because you're going to gain about, I think, 30% looking at this, or it's about 57% more light coins for the total amount of runs you need to do to get one of these rank 6 champions and the path there. You're going to gain 3,000 light coins. That could offset quite a lot your training requirements. Now, if all you're interested in food, obviously you'll need 3.3 million XP, which is a lot less runs. It's 129 Brutal 12-3 or 57 Nightmare 12-6. That translates into about 1,000 energy for Brutal and 916 for Nightmare, and you're going to gain again an equivalent bonus of 1,365 light coins or 869 on Nightmare. So I'm going to say this now, all my math going forward is assuming you run Brutal. I don't think Nightmare is as efficient here. I think you gain far too much light coins on Brutal to make it worth running. It may be more effort, but it will be less energy overall. So if you didn't want to catch all the math, welcome back to the video. This is the section where I'm going to give you a summary of what you need to do if you want to do training. So we've worked out all the math. We've worked out how much we need. How many rank 6s do we need to generate? So rank 2 to rank 6 to generate enough energy to complete path 1. Well, 0.66 of a champion. So obviously this means you're probably going to get there before you make your rank 1. And it's going to equate to roughly 4,000 energy. Now, that's not bad. You might think 4,000 energy for a legendary book. I actually think that's quite a good exchange here. I'm actually more positive on this so far. Now, obviously, each path is individually weighted here. You can use this screenshot here as reference if you want to. I'll see if I can create a spreadsheet which has all this on, but it's quite a messy spreadsheet with all the math that I've tried to do today. The most important one, I think, here for a lot of people will be the Sacred Path. This is the path to get your Sacred Shards, the cheapest and most efficient way. You will need to create 2 level 60s. That would be 2 fully leveled rank 6 champions using rank 2 to rank 5 food, partial leveling rank 4 and rank 5 without doing any brews. Obviously, if you use brews, this goes down. This is just if you didn't take into account light coins. If we then take into account the average light coins we get from dungeon divers, so this would be the coins we achieve from doing the campaign, well, we save ourselves about half a rank 6. Which is around about 3,000 energy. This is why I said the dungeon divers points are actually quite impactful. It's saving you about a third of your energy here in terms of training. So if you wanted to run for ranking to rank 6, it's going to cost you about 9,199 energy to get your Sacred Shard. If you want to do all of the path, all of the event, it's about 15,486 energy. Now that sounds like a big number, but actually for a legendary book, for a Sacred Shard, a Void Shard, for an Epic Book, for the Rank 5 Chicken, it's not as bad as the previous event in my opinion. I think this training conversion, it feels better, it feels less effort, and it feels a little bit cleaner. And of course, the good thing about training is you always end up with something because you're going to be able to make more rank 6 champions or prepare for the next fusion with food. Now, if you're only interested in making food, the numbers are actually more efficient. So if we didn't include the Dungeon Divers bonus, it would be around about 10.21 for the Sacred, 17.19 in total for all paths, or 3.38 just for the Legendary Book. That then you can see the energy levels here. It would be for the Sacred Path 10,561 energy, 3,500 for the Legendary Book, or 17,778 in total. Again, I think we need to factor in the Dungeon Divers here. So what does it actually translate to? If you want the Legendary Book, you would spend 2,728. 2,728 energy for a Legendary Book is actually a very good conversion in my opinion. That's really good. So definitely a good event for the Legendary Book. If you want the Sacred Shard, it's about 8,250 energy. You'd need to make around about 8 5-stars. And then if you want to complete the entire event, it's 13,888 energy. That would be 13.43 rank 5 champions on that path. Now, in terms of how much is it really worth it? So the Sacred Path is 8,250 energy. That roughly translates into about 63 refills, which is about 2,500 gems. So it's 2,500 gems for Sacred Shard and all the benefits you get along the way. Obviously, you could pick up the energy as well if you wanted to try and offset some of this, although it's not much in the Hero's Path, but that's not a bad exchange rate. So guys, that's obviously a lot of math I've just thrown at you. What is my opinion on this event? Actually, now that I've looked at the math, my first impression was, dear God, it's even worse. Actually, the champion training is not so bad. I actually think this is much better than the first one. It's much less intensive. Granted, people will go, well, I had 100 million silver lying around, so it was really easy. Not many players can literally sit on 100 million silver unless you're ultra endgame, in my opinion. I'm fairly late to endgame and I never ever have that much silver, so it's kind of like that similar concept. If you've got the energy and gems to spare, you can get to your Sacred Shard in about 8,000 energy. If you just want the Legendary Book, you're talking 2,000 to 3,000 energy. It's really efficient to get that Legendary Book. I think it's great. Obviously, if you want the Sacred Shard and the Legendary Book, then it starts getting a little bit more resource intensive. But it depends on how much you value this Sacred Shard here. Keep in mind, as I said at the start of the video, the Sacred Shard is 50% of its path value to get to this. The Sacred Path in total is around about 50,000. This is 25,000. So even if you don't get that Sacred, you could save yourself a lot, get a Legendary Book, get a rank 5 chicken, finish off because you're already there. You don't necessarily need to collect these rewards if you don't want them. You could skip this, and just focus on the end reward. This is why I quite like this hero path. I think they've learned a little bit, made it more flexible for players. They can pick what they want. This is how the event should be. I wonder whether or not just the conversion for training champions is just more efficient than artifact enhancement and dungeon divers. That's the end of the video, guys. A bit of a long one. It's taken me a bit to work it all out. If you spot any math errors, there may be a few here or there, but I'm pretty confident I've triple checked it all. I've had some people verify some numbers for me as well, just so that I'm not an absolute idiot. I will be bringing you a breakdown of the fusion tomorrow, and next week I'll also give you a bit of a breakdown of where we're at on the summer trials, whether or not we're still on the milestones, whether we've improved. My gut tells me it'll probably be even worse based on the comments of the last video where everyone pretty much hated on it. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you're really happy with this hero path. Do you think it's an improvement? I really enjoy having your comments and getting your feedback, and I will catch you in the next video.